You are listening to KC Sports Network, proudly presented by Emprise Bank, your partner in possible.
The Missouri basketball Tigers are winners of 4 straight heading into the SEC tournament. We got a lot to talk about here on today's Mizzou That's Who. And as always, I'm joined by Gabe DeArmond, Maggie Johnson. Got to give a special shout out to Charlie Hustle for outfitting us as always on this show. I've got the breaking out the Kansas City soccer shirt. Soccer season starting up here in Kansas City, but there's still plenty of basketball to take place, to watch and to gamble on and to consume. There's plenty of it. Gabe, how has your week been? We took a week off, but now we're back and we're gearing up for the SEC tournament.
Yeah, getting a little busy, which is good because this has often been the time of year where either you're just going, please God, can this end? Or, all right, so better have that hot board ready to go.
Absolutely. Maggie, how have you been? It's been a while since we convened. How are you?
Good. Just kind of staying busy. Lots happened over here in St. Louis for our St. Louis listeners as well. We have a new soccer team. We have St. Louis City. And they have their first home game. So there's been a lot going on, even though we haven't been on the podcast. So I'm excited to kind of talk about it, break it down a little bit.
Battlehawks are back as well.
We lost yesterday, but we're 2-1. Not bad. Get our first home game.
Leave off top of the head. St. Louis City, have they won both of their games?
Yes, they are 2-0.
They beat Charlotte. With Charlotte, not very good. You didn't tune into this podcast for MLS breakdowns.
And then they beat Austin. But yeah, we'll get another time.
You can check out the KCSN Soccer channel for MLS stuff. Here we're going to talk about, as we hopped on to record this podcast a little bit before the SEC awards were announced. So we're going to talk about them and the mini storylines that come with the awards, right? So obviously who got them and who didn't get them are sometimes equally as big of a story. Start off with Kobe Brown. He gets 2 honors, first team All-SEC, and he also gets the SEC Scholar Athlete of the Year, first Missouri Tiger to win that award. Kind of a big deal. Kobe Brown had a good year. Glad to see him get awarded for it.
Agreed.
Yeah,
I think everybody expected. There was a time where I thought, Kobe might be able to be Player of the Year. I think that kind of fell apart 2/3 of the way through the season or so. It was interesting to me that Brandon Miller was voted the Player of the Year. I would have voted for him. I think it's the right vote. I thought there might be a little backlash there, but I think instead the backlash was toward Nate Oates, which is where it belongs.
I think that's one of those things. I was talking to some people about it today, actually, is if off field or off the court and on the court things should both take into account. I said it should be on the court. There's awards for off the court. Kobe's is kind of a mix with him getting Scholar Athlete of the Year. So, I think that Brandon Miller, he was the best player on the court. Yeah. He should win first Player of the Year.
It's an art versus artist conversation. Can you separate the art from the artist? A lot of times people can't separate the art from the artist. So it's a very interesting question when it comes to that. Looking at this first team here, I think I do have the wrong list. That's 2022. I still thought it was 22. I was reading that. I was like, that doesn't seem right. No, but the 2023 list here, if I can type in the right year.
I've got it in front of me. It's
okay.
Brandon Miller. First of all, I fail to understand why the SEC has to put 8 players on the first team. 8 players have never played basketball at the same time. So
that's true.
Brandon Miller, Colin Castleton, who missed like the last 6 games of the year. Yeah. Oscar Tshiebwe, Tolu Smith, Kobe Brown, Santiago Vescovi, Wade Taylor, Liam Robbins. I think those were 7 of the 8 best players in this league, probably. Castleton is weird to me. But other than that, I don't have any issues with those guys.
Those are the players every game that we're saying, got to watch out for this guy. He can make a lot of shots. So that sounds about right. I also kind of wish there was only 5 players because you can only field 5 players at a time. So, yeah. And they only have 5 defensive, so I don't know.
That's why they have a second team, so you get 5 other guys,
there's no other... Do they do this across all other conferences? Or
I don't know because I don't pay any attention. But the SEC has always done it. There's always 8 guys, and sometimes there's more than 8 if there's like a tie.
Well, there's way more freshmen. How many freshmen are there? Are there 8 freshmen as well?
There are 8 freshmen as well. Yes.
Okay. That is very interesting. I'm digging into the Big 12s. They've got, this messed up. I don't understand that. Like, that's not what I get. You don't see, like, the Pro Bowl, they don't name more players, whatever. They didn't.
Well, they do because everybody opted out. Maybe 3 guys opted out of the SEC All-First team. Maybe they're like, I don't want to be on that. Going to take care of my body for the NCAA tournament. Don't put me on the All-SEC first.
Don't put me on this. They thought they had to actually play a game. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that.
So Colin Castleton out, Wade Taylor in.
Yeah, I mean, listen, I think we talked about all the room for these guys to get in, and there were some Missouri guys that did not get in spots that maybe we thought that they would get in, maybe some second team spots, some defensive team spots, and those equally, well, maybe this is unfair for me to say, but as I was scrolling through my Twitter feed as those were going out, it felt like we were talking about more of the players that didn't get it and the coach that didn't get the award than the awards that were actually handed out.
Welcome to 2023. You know what we're going to do next Sunday? We're going to spend the first 2 hours after the selection show talking about how the 71st team in the country absolutely got screwed because they're not in the NCAA tournament. And look, I understand this is about Des Moines Hodge for Missouri fans. I thought he might make second team all league. Mark Sears, he had a good year. Ricky Council, Janai Broom, Wendell Green, KJ Williams, Zakai Zigor, Tyrese Radford. All those guys are good. Anthony Black, I can make a pretty easy argument. Hodge over Anthony Black makes sense, especially because Arkansas was 8-10, and I don't know Anthony Black's numbers. I watched him play a decent number of times and sometimes thought he was great and sometimes thought he was the reason his team lost. So I can make an argument for Hodge on second team. It was surprising that Hodge wasn't on the all defensive team, I think. Also, you've got to understand, again, fans put so much more energy and frankly thought into voting for these things than I think the people voting for it. This is the coaches team. Very few of the coaches actually probably voted for it. But I don't think those who did probably spent a ton of time thinking, the all-defensive team. Now, who are the 5 guys that were really good on defense when we played them? And let me go back and look over the film. They're getting ready for games. If they're voting for this at all, it's the SID coming up and going, you good with this? Yeah, that's fine.
I think the big issue for a lot of fans is mainly you kind of just have that pain for that player. I remember who was a Marcus Golden when he didn't get all SEC, and it was just kind of like, what are we doing here? That's kind of how people feel about Des Moines Hodge. Most people know this, but he's number 3rd in the entire country in steals, number 1 in Power 5, and it's not even relatively close. One of the guys that got picked above him, he has 24 more steals. He averages more rebounds per game. To me, it's just kind of, it doesn't matter, but you still want that recognition to kind of go with the Mizzou name.
I think the defensive thing is a penalty for Missouri being a bad defensive team. And look, I will stand by, people continue to try to disagree. I will stand by the fact I do not think they're a good defensive basketball team. I don't really know how you could watch it and think otherwise. They get some steals, they're high risk, and sometimes it pays off. Overall, I don't think they're very good defensively. So it's kind of like you were having the argument in the Super Bowl, right? If Nick Bolton scores a second touchdown, is he the MVP? And you go, yeah, but then you also go, well, that was a 38-35 game. Can I give the most valuable player to a guy on a unit that largely didn't get very many stops? And so I think maybe that's the logic for Des Moines Hodge not being on that team. That, again, combined with, I just don't think a ton of effort is put into these things.
Yeah, looking at this is nothing new, but the Missouri KenPom rating for their defense is 195th in the country. That's not exactly going to jump off the page when you're looking at members for that team to make the defensive team. So that does make a lot of sense. But yeah, Maggie, as you mentioned, he had some pretty good numbers in Power 5. So it's like one of those things where you're like looking at it and you see the team numbers and like it just doesn't add up, right? Like it just doesn't add up. But I think the big one, at least for me that I saw, is Dennis Gates not named SEC Coach of the Year. Now was named SEC Coach of the Year, I believe, by the USA Today Network. They named him the SEC Coach of the Year, but the SEC, it was Buzz Williams and Jerry Stackhouse Coach of the Year. You guys had respectable seasons, but it's tough to look at what Dennis Gates did and say that he didn't have a Coach of the Year type season.
I think we should go in level of outrage over this, so I'm going to probably let you guys go first.
That's fair.
Okay, so my outrage it's not that I'm outraged. I just think that if you're going to give it to two coaches, that it's probably Buzz Williams and Dennis Gates. In terms of level of like expectations versus exceeding expectations, I mean, Vanderbilt's record this year is a game worse than their record last year. So to me, it's not really that, like, it doesn't make a lot of sense in terms of Vandy. I think won 19 games last year, 18 this year. Mizzou won 12 games last year with a first-year head coach, and they've won 23 games in the regular season. I just don't even see how you can look at it, and that includes a win beating Vanderbilt. So I don't really see how you can if you're going to give two coaches that award, I don't really see how you can give that other award to anybody except Dennis Gates, maybe Nate Oates. But I don't see how you can, if you're going to give it to Jerry Stackhouse, I just doesn't make sense to me.
Gabe, are you okay if I go? Is that okay?
I'm waiting for you.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
absolutely.
Cool. I do think this is very interesting because I made a note on Twitter about kind of listen, Jerome Tang rightfully so has done a phenomenal job at Kansas State, taking that team from where it was last year to where it was this year. But this whole song and dance I think has been played by, I don't want to specifically say K-State fans because I think it's been more than K-State fans that acting like Keontae Johnson was like a scrub before, like he wasn't very good before he joined.
Wasn't he the preseason SEC Player of the Year either last year or the year before?
You are correct. He really
was.
And the whole song and dance that we're doing about how Jerome Tang has taken this ragtag group of nobodies into a contender is something that is baffling to me, but as is, this is a narrative-driven world that we live in, right? And Dennis Gates, took a team that I called the best mid-major team in the SEC and made them fourth in the conference. He had one less win than Jerome Tang, finished one spot lower than what Tang's Wildcats did in the Big 12 with a worse roster, and they didn't lose outside of Quad 1. So Kansas State had outside of Quad 1 loss. So, as a note that I made, an interesting observation is all that I'm saying. And is how good Jerome Tang's getting all of this praise. How come Dennis Gates isn't? It's just an observation that
I love that this has become a Jerome Tang thing. We're talking about the SEC Player of the Year, and Tucker has K-State issues.
I always will.
But let's not act like Dennis Gates isn't getting credit. Nationally, a lot of people are talking about him doing a really good job. Yeah. We have no issue with Buzz Williams being Coach of the Year, right? Nobody has a problem with that. If it's just Buzz Williams, I think I would have voted for Dennis Gates. I texted about 10 people last night that cover college basketball. I said, if you had a vote, who do you vote for? And it was like 4 Gates, 3 or 4 Buzz, 1 Stackhouse, 1 Oates, something like that. So you got to remember, this is only 14 votes, and you can't vote for yourself. So what if the voting is like Buzz 4, Stackhouse 4, Gates 3, Nate Oates 3? Yeah. That's certainly possible. Stackhouse doesn't make a lot of sense to me. He had a nice year, but we've fallen into this Coach of the Year award being the guy who we thought was going to suck, who kind of better than sucked. I mean, And that's part of the reason, I guess, that Gates is being mentioned. But part of coaching is getting the players in the offseason. And what I don't know about the SEC Coach of the Year, if you just vote on games in the SEC, like if it's just those 18 games, give me Buzz Williams all day. They're 15-3. I'm good with that. And Vandy was 11-7, and that was solid. But I feel like Stackhouse is getting credit for turning around this team that was awful in the non-conference season. Well, like that's his fault. They were awful in the non-conference season too. I don't think you get the award for half a year. Like I said, I'd have voted Gates. I don't have a huge issue at all. I have no issue with Buzz. Basketball-wise, I wouldn't have had an issue with Nate Oates, but I don't think there was any chance he was going to win that. I'd be curious, like if we could see the votes, like if the SEC was like, oh no, that guy he didn't get no votes. We're not going to talk about those votes.
Well, it's just wild to me that Vanderbilt might not even get into the
they're absolutely not getting into the tournament. I mean, they've got to win 2 games.
So that's wild to me too, is how can your SEC Coach of the Year be a non-tournament team? It's wild. I don't get it. Like you said, Buzz Williams, yes, no issue. If you're going to give a co, it's got to be Dennis Gates.
But like, Missouri players appear to be ready to turn this into, a rallying cry for this week in Nashville. I mean, I tweeted some screenshots, and again, if Travis Kelce can stand on national television and say that nobody picked the Kansas City Chiefs, then whatever you want to say is fine. Use what you got to use. I don't love the word disrespect because I don't think it's disrespectful to not have given this to Dennis Gates, but like you can make an argument he should have won it.
It's good that they've got all the ammo. They got all the bulletin board material heading into the SEC tournament, which, as we were talking about, is the tied for the furthest they've gotten in the SEC tournament. Would be a lot cooler if it wasn't. You're right, ever. Like, yeah,
like literally, if they forfeit on Friday, this ties the deepest run they've ever made in Nashville.
In Dennis Gates' first year.
That's true. Dennis Gates' first year, number 4 seed, as I mentioned earlier. They're going to get the winner of Tennessee versus the game 1 winner, who's going to be the winner of South Carolina or Ole Miss. Then they'll play Tennessee. Missouri will get the winner of Tennessee versus South Carolina or Ole Miss.
Missouri will play Tennessee.
Yes.
Right. It's like 98%.
I'm just laying it all out there. March Madness, never know what can happen. But yes, the tournament, heading into it, good to have this kind of the bulletin board material, the motivation factor, as if they need any more motivation heading into this tournament.
But here's how wild college basketball is. I mean, the 4 seed is awesome, but had, Missouri, I think, was behind against LSU until, a minute 37 left. They were behind against Ole Miss until about 2:10 or something like that. If they lose either one of those games, they're 7th. Like, I heard on the CBS podcast this morning, Northwestern played Rutgers last night. If they won, they were the 2 seed in the Big Ten tournament. If they lost, they were the 9. Like, that is the middle of these conferences. You have 14 teams in 18 games. Wow. I mean, the differentiation between like not playing until Saturday and playing, or not playing until Friday and playing on Wednesday is like 4 plays.
It's wild. Absolutely insane. I'm excited for this to get going. Missouri will have a 3 p.m. game too. Well, that's, I think, 2
p.m. here.
3 Eastern, yes. Didn't account for the time change.
I do have a question about it, though, about the SEC tournament. Do we think that results of the tournament really matter? Like what?
Not.
I think that if Mizzou were to go out and win the SEC tournament, I think that would matter.
Right.
I'm not 100% sure that winning a game or losing a game to Tennessee would really do anything.
I think getting to Sunday matters. If you beat Tennessee and back it up by beating what is likely Alabama, I think that they jump up. The beauty of this for Missouri is I don't think they can hurt themselves. wherever they're at today, and we don't know where that is, 8, 6, 7, whatever. But losing by 15 to Tennessee on Friday night, I don't think is going to make that go down. If we make the assumption that Missouri will be seeded to win a game in the tournament, which is 8 seed or higher, and I think everybody thinks that at this point, then I don't think Friday night can change that, even if they get beat.
Yeah, I would agree. Looking at some bracketology here, hopping on the old the bracket matrix. Shout out Gabe using the bracket matrix here. They've got them at a 8 seed, but a 7.81. So they're right on that line between 7 and 8 seed. It's going to be depending on probably what happens ahead of them. I would assume, and if obviously they can help themselves, but it's going to be a lot dependent on external factors as well.
It's also just going to be dependent on what the people in that room decide they want to look at.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, what does the quad ones wins matter the most? Do they look at who knows what they're going to look at? If I'm seeding the tournament, I think I'd have Missouri as a 6. But I've tried the last couple of weeks. I'm still not on the committee.
I do think that 8-9 line is a little bit weird. I mean, of course, I've watched every game, so it's different than the people that are voting who have maybe watched Mizzou play at Tennessee and saw us win on a buzzer beater, or maybe saw us get beat by 30 to Auburn. Like, you don't really know what games that the people that are voting are watching. So, I mean, if I would probably put us around a 7. I don't know if I'd go to 6. I'd probably put us around a 7. But everything I see says 8 or 9, and it's just kind of deflating a little bit too, because if you win that game, which Mizzou hasn't been very good in the 8 or 9 spot as of late. But if you win that game, you have to play the number 1, and it just is such a deflating thing to see every time bracketology comes out to see us on the 8 or 9 line.
Well, in the most recent bracketology, they do have them as 8 or 9. The 1 seed that they're going to be playing from Joe Lunardi would be Kansas.
Was it Kansas?
Still don't.
It was UCLA for some reason.
I still don't think it's likely. But first of all, again, I think Missouri's going to be, but I don't think they're going to be in that 8-9 game. I mean, there are a lot of teams that have done a lot less than Missouri has.
Yeah.
So we'll see. They'll be where they'll be, but there's nobody that you look at and say, I mean, look, bottom line is they're going to be an underdog in the second round. You're just going to go take your shot, and hey, there's a lot of years where a 7 or an 8 seed gets through. So you just kind of hope you win your first game. And I think it's important. If Missouri wins a game, unmitigated success this season.
Right.
Like nothing else. I don't care if you lose in the second round 207-9 to KU. It was a hell of a year. If you end that 13-year streak, and honestly, it's a hell of a year just being there. But once you're there, might as well go ahead and win one anyway.
Yeah, you might as well.
What's the status like? 2012, 20. When was the last time they won a game?
2010, I believe.
2010, March 19th, 2010.
Wow.
I looked it up today. 4,736 days or something like that.
But who's counting?
Yeah, I do think
I'm looking up every year. I always manage to work it into a story somewhere along the way.
Gave us the countdown, hanging up, on the neon board.
Is you are contractually required to work it in there. No, I do think that just kind of. I think we've talked about this all year, though, of the peak in the valley of Missouri basketball, and I was talking about in context of what seed they can be, but even just on the court. But again, you come to that point where you're just like, oh, so there's a kind of there's a good range. Like Jerry Palm has him as a 6 seed, playing the playing game against one of the 11 seeds.
By the way, that one of those playing teams could be Penn State. I heard this morning.
Penn State, Mississippi State.
Worst offensive rebounding team in America. So, worst offensive rebounding team in America could face the worst defensive rebounding team in America. That is now what I'm rooting for Mizzou, Penn State.
The ball just bounces out of bounds every time. I saw.
No one can corral it.
At the end of the game, the leading rebounder has 2 rebounds, and it's like team rebounds 41-37.
That'd be good. That'd be a good one. No, so there's some interesting matchups that Missouri could face. I do always like the tournament because you do get to see those matchups of like, oh, when was the last time Missouri played Oral Roberts? It's like, oh, they weren't a school when Missouri could have played them in the tournament last. But no, there's a lot of exciting things going on. Like, super excited to see how the SEC tournament shakes out. This conference tournament season, this little week stretch here where you have all the conference tournament basketball going on leading up into Selection Sunday. It's a great time just to be able to watch all the college basketball that you can to get ready. You got to get ready for the March Madness. This is your primer.
Here's what I love. This is literally what I did Saturday night when I came home from the Mizzou game. I was like on the edge of my seat watching SEMO, and I don't even remember who they played, but it was an amazing game.
SEMO.
Tennessee Tech. That's who it was. SEMO and Tennessee Tech. And what the hell else am I going to care about either of those? Like SEMO, I was in the building when SEMO played a basketball game, and I didn't care. Actually, I don't think that's true. I don't think I went to that one.
I have a lot of friends that went to SEMO, so I immediately text them, and I was like, for my SEMO people, and, congratulated them on them making March Madness. Not that most of them care, but some of them might.
Like, Kennesaw State in the tournament, first time ever. 2 years ago, they won 1 game. I bet that guy won Coach of the Year.
Yeah, I was about to ask if he did.
Or maybe it might have been 3 years ago, but it was not very long ago. They won 1 game. They had I watched a couple minutes of that on ESPN2, and it said it was the first nationally televised game from whatever they call their. I swear, guys, it looked like they were playing at the Arc here in Columbia, like just the community recreation center. That's where ESPN2 was for that game. It was amazing.
I actually kind of like when they have games like that. Sometimes that Hawaii tournament that they have every year looks like it's in like a high school gym.
At Chaminade.
Like everybody's like real close together. And
I went to the Battle for Atlantis in 2012 when Missouri played there, and they legitimately played in a ballroom in Atlanta.
Yeah.
It was there were like 77 seats in the place. The ceiling was like 6 feet over your head. There was the day that Louisville ended Negus Webster-Chan's career as a point guard.
I'm looking at pictures of Kennesaw State University's. This is from their facilities website. It's called the KSU Convocation Center.
That's what it was, yeah.
And it is interesting.
It looks like a community center.
It does. It looks like that.
Like they had to hurry up and finish that game because they had the Aquasize class coming in at 5:30.
They had Zumba after the game.
Yeah, they had to get it going. No, and so seeing this makes sense why they hadn't had an ESPN2 game there. ESPN ever. No, good stuff.
One of these teams we're talking about is going to be all of a sudden next week. We're going to be like, oh my God, did you see the Kennesaw State Purdue game?
Right. That's the best part. Also got to give a quick shout out before we get out of here to the Missouri wrestling team winning another Big 12 title back to back. They've won it now every year since I've been alive. I made that stat up, but
related, Chucker's now 12.
I think is it 13?
It's 12, maybe 13 in that range.
Anyway, great showing for them. I think they had one champion in their weight class, the 195.
It was Rocky Elam.
Yeah,
was
such a good name. That is such a good name. He'll be a really good WWE wrestler.
I mean, Brock Mahler is actually a better wrestler name, I feel.
That's a pretty good move, too.
So I should have done this before the podcast started, but Nationals are starting sometime soon.
They're in 2 weeks. Yeah.
Okay.
And all 10 of Missouri's guys are qualified automatically.
There you go.
So there you go.
The Missouri Wrestling School, what it comes down to.
Yeah. I feel like we got to legit. Like, yeah. Somebody said that we should name Hearns Brian Smith Arena and then name Mizzou Arena Hearns. An idea, throwing it out there.
Yeah, I don't know if you can take a former governor's name off a building, but every
then you put it on another one.
Right. Like every wrestling related thing is going to be named after Brian Smith whenever he retires. And like, I don't know how old he is, but I don't think he's super old.
No, he looks pretty young. He looks kind of similar to Barry Odom, does he not? Anytime see that? Every time I see it, I'm like, oh wait, that's not Barry Odom and Mizzou. So. Also, Mizzou Gymnastics beat Bama on Friday as well, which is
huge,
very big, heading into the end of their season as well. So props to all those girls because they've just been killing it.
Yes.
You're not allowed to say that when referencing a competition with Alabama, by the way.
Oh, oops. My bad.
Just beep out those 15 seconds.
But what I was talking about earlier with Mizzou and the Big 12, Brian Smith did win the Big 12 Wrestling Coach of the Year. This is like fun little nugget here from Mizzou PR, whatever they are. We'll just call them PR.
Strategic Communications.
There we go. With his 12th all-time conference championship, Brian Smith has captured the most league titles in history of Mizzou athletics, surpassing Norm Stewart with 11. So Brian Smith is now the most legendary. When somebody asks you who's the most legendary person at Mizzou, you gotta say, well, it is wrestling coach Brian Smith. And
I mean, I don't think you got it, but
I have to.
But he's good.
He is good.
Now, if we can just if they can just get themselves a natty, which, it'll be hard because there's a lot, you're going against Iowa and Penn State and Ohio State and the best, but they could do it. They're our closest team right now, so let's get it.
I'm just reading more into these stats that they put out. This team is wild. 148 points scored by Mizzou, reset their record that they set last year at the Big 12 Championships, breaking their record by most ever team points at a Big 12 Championship. 131. So, yeah.
I love reading Twitter and everyone's like, and I see like all these Oklahoma State fans being like, it was so dumb of us to let Mizzou back in the Big 12. They're like, it's good for competition, but it was so dumb.
Yeah. Well, I can just see as soon as we end this podcast, Tucker's going to be tweeting about how Brian Smith is better than Jerome Tenney.
I got you. So to do it.
You gotta get to me.
How far are they going this weekend? What do we think?
I'm preparing for a loss to Tennessee, but
reminder, they don't have Zakai Ziegler.
That's true. That's true.
Reminder, DeAndre Golston is 1 for 1 from 40 feet against Ken.
That's a very
related real quick. I put this on our board on Saturday. If you're coaching against Missouri, at what point do you just go, look, like legitimately don't guard Golston? Like we don't want anybody close to him because if you leave him wide open at the 3-point line, he's probably not going to make it. Right. But he's going to stand there and wait until 2 guys are in his face and 1 guy is untying his shoes and 1 guy is punching him and then he's going to make it. So like just don't guard him at all. I've never seen anything like it.
It's like my Dennis Gates doesn't like rebound strategy.
Exactly.
He actually doesn't like them, so why would he?
Right.
Go for him?
Like Golden just waits for the double team before he shoots.
And I hate myself sometimes because I like yell. I'm like, no, not that shot, and then he makes it, and I'm just like,
you only yell no, not that shot when he's open.
Right. Oh yeah, that's when I should yell it.
His good shot matrix is like the inverse of everybody else's.
It feels like this game happened a long time ago. He hit the scoop shot, right?
Yeah.
That was okay.
12 feet.
Right. That was the weirdest looking shot ever. And I was like, that. And then watching it on the TV angle, it like the net didn't move. So I was like, what just happened? And then I was like, oh, he made it. So it was just a move mixed with like the just an over exaggerated swoop of the arm.
Who takes that shot?
Right.
DeAndre Gold.
Right.
I mean, it was amazing. Yeah. But anyway, like, so I think they beat Tennessee.
Do you think they make it to Saturday?
I think they make it to Saturday. I think Alabama is not a great matchup, but I think had Alabama beaten Texas A&M, I would maybe have picked Missouri to beat Alabama because, like, I think at some point, like, they've been flirting with losing a game for quite a while. right? And I think it was probably good for him to lose one. But I can see Bama going into this tournament going, as long as we don't lose on Friday, we're a 1 seed. Yeah. I mean, they're probably a 1 seed even if they do. But, I can see Alabama not putting a ton into this tournament. They're so talented still. I mean, I can't, it would not shock me if Missouri's playing on Sunday. It also wouldn't shock me if they lose Friday night. I mean, that's this team.
I was looking at something maybe yesterday, the Ken Palm, and it had Oklahoma at 50. And I was like, that's kind of wild to me that Oklahoma's at 50 and Mizzou's at like 53 or something crazy. And somebody's like, well, yeah, they beat Alabama
by 30.
Yeah.
Like
embarrassed them. Yeah. And on their home court, right? That was in Oklahoma. Yeah. Alabama is going to have games like that, just like Mizzou did when they played Auburn. Like, it's not who they are likely as a team. I don't know if this late in the season, if Alabama's going to have another game like that.
They haven't been good for a little while.
Well, I think they have a lot. Since Brandon Miller scored 41 points against South Carolina in a near loss.
Right, almost lost that game.
In a near loss.
Trailed Auburn most of the game. Really just got kind of dominated by A&M.
Yeah. Who I feel like I need to say, I apologize to A&M because I tweeted something I tweeted something not super nice about A&M. I mean, I didn't say anything mean. I was just like, we're losing to this not very good A&M team. They're better. They've gotten better.
They're good.
They've definitely gotten better than they were in their non-conference.
Yeah, the non-con was kind of a not what that team actually was.
It just had to make a challenge, just dig themselves a hole so they could climb back out of it. Right. Kind of like Missouri's done here these last 4 games. Just we'll show up at halftime. It's fine, right?
It's a stress test. It's what old John Paffer does every bar rescue. Does a stress test.
Who's it for? Is it for us or for them?
For us.
I was at my niece's birthday party and I was like apologizing to everyone. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm not paying any attention because this game's on and whatever. But
your niece will have other birthday parties.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully she'll have
Missouri will never play Ole Miss again, though.
Not in the year of our Lord 2023.
Right. Not playing for a 4 seed, maybe. I don't know. It's our first one ever, so who knows if that'll ever happen again. But I think Mizzou can also beat Tennessee. It's virtually a home game for Tennessee, so that's kind of might be a little bit of a factor, but I don't think that Mizzou lacks the ability to beat Tennessee in Nashville.
If you look at Tennessee this year, I mean, just go through and look at how many points they've given up in most games, and it is not very many at all. Missouri scored 86 on them. Yeah. That might be the wildest thing that this team's done all year.
And we let them come back from a 20-point deficit.
Right.
I mean, we were up 20 points.
Gave up 85 to a team that cannot. That's why I don't like Tennessee in March. They just can't score.
Right. What's the they were talking about this on the broadcast. The stat that once Missouri scores over 70 points, they don't lose or something.
They have not lost
over 70 points.
They are 22-0 when they score 70 points. No, not 21-0. Sorry, they're 2-8 when they don't.
There you go. That's the key right there. Missouri's got to get.
It really is.
They will get basketball.
Also, and I mean, I wrote about this after the game Saturday. They're 8-0 in games decided by 5 points or less.
That's wild. That I heard that stat when they were talking about that on the broadcast, and I was like, that doesn't seem right because it seems like they've lost all these close games, but it's not true. They haven't lost close games. Yeah,
in the past, at some point, this becomes a skill, right? I mean, if this team has, if you're at the under 4 timeout and it's a 2-possession game, you got to feel pretty good about their chances. I mean, if they're going to lose, they don't screw around. They just get absolutely blown off the court. I mean, if they're going to lose, it's over 9 minutes into the game.
Yeah, respect.
I would love to know what those huddles are like whenever, the past 3 games or whatever, when we have, or maybe not Georgia, because I guess at the end of the Georgia game, we've been blowing them out. But maybe the Mississippi State game, the Ole Miss game, and the LSU game. I'd love to know what it's like because they never look flustered. They always look to me like they know they're going to win the game.
Well, it's because I want sports science to put a heart rate monitor on Dennis Gates during the game. And I don't think it would change. I think it would just flatline the entire. Like they might be like, "Hey, coach, are you alive? Can you like tap the microphone?" You know.
But after games, he's so animated, which is wild. He is. I mean, he pumping up the student section. He's jumping on players. So he has it in him, but he's just Mr. Cool during games.
That's what it be. Lots of exciting things to look for. And this week in college basketball, we'll be back next week after the conference tournament's over, after Selection Sunday's done and over, to talk about the tournament and Missouri's matchup that they have heading into the NCAA tournament, hopefully trying to get that first win since 2010. That was a long time ago. Couldn't probably call me maybe he was at the top of the charts.
I graduated college in 2010. For anybody's know. I was in college the last time we won a tournament game. Maybe I should go back. To college.
You have to. Time is a flat circle. You have to.
Just remember, guys, at 5:30 on Sunday, no Sacramento, no Orlando. More than anything else, that's what we're rooting for. No whatever the seed is, whoever the opponent is, just no Sacramento, no Orlando.
Gabe doesn't want to go to Sacramento or Orlando, everybody. So.
Gabe doesn't want to pay to go to Sacramento or Orlando.
That's fair.
Neither of those places are very fun cities.
Also, don't get me wrong. I'm not super fired up about Albany, New York, but at least it's cheaper.
What about Des Moines, Iowa?
No, that's great. I could drive.
Like,
give me Des Moines, Iowa. I would never have been more excited to go to Des Moines.
They picked some real winners for these regional games, didn't they? All right, that's going to do it for us. Before we say anything else, it's too dangerous. Before I say anything else about Jerome Tang, I'm going to call this podcast off. Appreciate you guys listening to this episode of Mizzou That's Who. We'll be back next week. So until then, we'll talk to you later.
Thanks for watching this production of KC Sports Network, the fastest growing sports media network in Kansas City. Check out these videos that feature our team of more than 15 former players, insiders, and analysts, bringing you the best Chiefs coverage you can find. Entertain, educate, inform. KC Sports Network.